Ciao, jewelry making friends. My name is Joey Balestrieri. Welcome to my work table. I know it looks like a mess, but I am so excited to start working with these beads. I just finished my unboxing for didi'sdeluxebeadbox for the month of June, and the beads are so stunning and inspiring. The colors are so happy. So I started to sort of cut things open and play and decide what I wanted to make, and the next thing I know, I have like 4 projects already done most of the way. Not done, but like designed, and I'm like worked out everything. So I said, stop making and start filming and share this with everybody. For those of you who get the box, maybe you'll get some ideas from this. And for those of you who did not get didi'sdeluxebeadbox for the month of June, maybe you can get the month of July. She consistently does fresh, beautiful, amazing things. This month's box was called The Beauty of Tourmaline, and there were 13 items in this box, and it is a stunning mix of all the colors that Tourmaline comes in, with gold as the accent metal, and it is just fabulous. I did pull a couple of things from my stash, and I'll tell you what the plan is. I'm gonna do this little pair of earrings super fast. First up, look how gorgeous this is. It is lightweight, fun, and flirty, and this will coordinate with the other pieces that I'm going to make because it includes pretty much all the colors that are represented in the box, and this is just super easy. The box had 8 pieces of these little filigree components, and they are just amazing. So this is like the sweet spot. At the end of the video, I'll put up some pictures with these earrings because I know that this is a really terrible camera angle for you to be able to see this, but they're not quite shoulder duster earrings, but almost. So they are just absolutely perfect for like the months that we're going into, to have something that's lightweight but beautiful, and really don't need any other accessory except that earring. So we're going to do one together, but my other projects that you see here is going to be a set of leather layering necklaces, and I have already made a start. These are the colors that I will be using. This is a 3mm magenta colored leather, and I have already glued with the Gel Control Super Glue 1 leather cord end cap on one end so that it could dry, so that I would be able to string right away, and then we'll string on the raw end, and then we'll finish that off. And I'm just a look at, let me just, I've already cut this strand, but just a look at this magenta with all the colors of the tourmaline. It is so beautiful. And then I had a 1mm turquoise leather, and I've done the same thing with a smaller little glue-on end cap so that it's ready to go. And this is yet a shorter length. So I didn't even measure the length, but I think it's going to be around 30, around 26. And then I wanted to be able to fit, a lot of these beads don't have large enough holes to fit 1mm leather, and certainly not 3mm leather. I'll show you what I found in the box that actually does go on it. So I went to my beloved Brazilian waxed cord, and I had this perfect turquoise color, and 2 strands of this fit through most everything else. So that's going to be my shortest necklace, and I have started with what I think my length will be and quadrupled it because knotting eats up a lot of cord. So those are going to be my 3 necklaces, and we're going to start with the biggest, boldest one. And I chose this 3mm leather because of this pendant. It is so stunning, but it's weighty, and I just think that the scale and just the 3mm leather just works beautifully for this. And what I also found is that these, I have them over here, these large ceramic beads that came in the box, they had a large enough hole to go over the 3mm leather. And then from my stash, I have these wonderful large hole spacer bead slash tubes and I'll show you what they look like. They were a Amazon find, and I will definitely take my Permalac anti-tarnish coating and brush over these because like this is gold-plated brass, so this will have some longevity. I might actually coat that too, but that's a higher quality than these, but they are stunning. Wait until you see how they look on the leather. So this fabulous little box of large hole spacer tubes looks like this, and I can link this below. I actually just got this and they worked perfectly as an add-in to Didi's Deluxe Bead Box. So that is my little plan for this set of jewelry. Everything will be interchangeable and wearable together. I'm going to just set this aside a little bit, and we're going to do the second earring for this really quickly. Oh, those are for that project. As you can tell, I'm a little bit excited about these beads. They were just so inspiring. They literally just spoke to me like right away. The designs just unfolded before my eyes. So it is really exciting. So what I have done, I cut apart the designer strand that was in the box, and there were 2 of these little teal beads and 2 of the little rose colored ones. And so I have just taken a little scrap of 22 gauge round medium temper German style wire, and I went down to 22 just because these little filigree connectors are so delicate and beautiful, and I just thought that the scale of this wire would work, and it really is great. So I'm going to be using my 1.5 millimeter one-step looper and just put that wire in so that just the end of the wire is past the back jaw of the tool, and I'm just going to close it slowly. The one-step looper makes that little tiny cut so you have a nice clean end. Close it and just pull that wire down, and while it's in the tool I can straighten it, warm it, and also I can see that my loop is centered. When I take it away, I have a really perfect little loop. It's not totally closed on this particular time, which is fine. I have to open it again to make my connections. And then I'm going to do the same thing on this end, put my little bead. I like to do my little loops opposite. And then this time the wire will go through the guide hole in the back of the tool, and I'm going to just gently close it so that I can make sure that I've pulled my gemstone bead away from that front jaw about 1 millimeter, and then I can slowly close the tool. Then it cuts the excess wire, and then once it's closed, I'll pull this down the same way that I did when there was no bead, so that loop is centered and even with that one. And if you at this point like didn't get your wire in there, I mean mine's pretty perfect, but you have good control with this tool for straightening out loops if you needed to. So this part is so amazing because we are basically ready to connect. So I will start right here at the top. These beautiful little filigree connectors had a hole at the top and at the bottom. So I started with the little teal one, and I'm just going to open that loop and add it to that little hole and just make sure that loop is closed. And then there were 8 pieces in total, so I switched to the other one, and it also has a little hole at the top, and so that's my middle connector for this little pair of earrings. And I'm just going to, where's the little hole? There it is. Just thread that on. You can kind of see why I chose the 22 gauge wire, just because it's very delicate. And now I'm going to go to my other bead that's been turned into a component and just open that loop and connect right here on the bottom hole. I absolutely love these little connectors. Stella, the founder and the curator of this box, she is amazing at finding things. She really is. I'm just going to open that and find the little hole. The filigree is so gorgeous that the hole kind of disappears. Whoops. Okay, that connecting is done. And now for the final drop, I used one of these beautiful little teardrop beads that was in the box and a ball head pin. So I just fed the ball head pin up through the middle, and I did do a wire wrapped loop on this because I want my teardrop to be facing forward. These are going to be flirty and fun and move around, but I do want to wrap it so that it's facing forward. So let me just show you this one real quickly before I do it. So it looks like that. The wrap is secured so that that will be facing forward, and the orientation of that wrap, my loop needs to be going front to back, so perpendicular to my mat, not horizontal. That's how I always kind of keep myself on track with my loops. So I'm going to grab that little head pin right where it's exiting the bead and give a 90-degree bend. As I said, I'm doing perpendicular because my loop is going to come this way. And then I used, because I'm using such fine gauge head pins and wire, I used my Xuron round nose pliers because they're so small, and I want a pretty small little loop in there just to keep the scale consistent with everything else. And I'm just going to wrap that over the jaw of the plier, over the barrel of the plier, rotate it so it's out of my way, and then bring that around, and I'll just like make sure that it's centered. And now before I wrap, you could do this with a jump ring, but I decided these are just so lightweight, I decided to just attach it directly to the filigree. So I just gave myself a little bit of space there, and I'm going to come right here to the bottom little hole and connect it. And now I will come back with my bent chain nose pliers and just get this wrapped right down, just lock it in place, and I'll just get it wrapped down to the bead. And I'm just going to, before I cut my wire, I just want to make sure that I have like tightened that down. I think I can get one more little turn in there. The head pins that I have are really, they're probably 24 gauge wire that these little ball head pins are made out of. I don't even remember where I got these, but I want to secure that little teardrop facing forward, and I'm just going to trim off this little excess and then tuck the cut end. Pretty straightforward, basic jewelry techniques for this. You could do a messy wrap here if you like. I tend to make things neat, so but you can, whatever look you like. I thought that a neat wrap going right down to the bead kind of coordinated well with these little filigree. I just get that end tucked. No, I still see it. There we go. And before I put my ear wire on, I just want to grab a hold and just, straighten everything. I tend to fuss with things before I can put it down. I always feel like I have to check everything that I've done. And sometimes when you're filming, it's the camera is distracting. Like, it does change the work and the creative process. So I'm just going to open this little ear wire that I had very gently, and I did find that on these little middle flowers that there was a front and a back. One side is there's just a little bit of difference. So let's see. Let me see which way I have it. I have it this way. On the other beads there is no front or back, so I have it that way. Turn it so my earrings match. and just close that loop really well. I literally cannot wait to wear these. Look at that. They are so fun, fast, and fabulous. Look at that. So sweet. I'll put some better pictures up at the end of the video. I'm going to just set them aside. Okay. So I'll start with the biggest necklace. I'm going to jump right into that. I'm pretty sure my little cord end should be dry by now, and I am going to just create a little pattern. My pendant will go in the middle, and you know what else I'm going to do? I'm going to set all of these little dishes aside. I find that I can't really design very well until I cut all the beads apart. So I did that for designing, but I know that there's a lot, you know, kind of competing for your attention in the camera lens. So let me pull out my little things that I know will string on to my 3mm leather. Now in this little dish, I had decided that I was going to do lobster claw clasps with these large jump rings for my 2 leather necklaces, and these are the ends, the other glue ends. So I have those ready, and then I haven't decided on my Brazilian waxed one yet. I may just do a little magnetic clasp. I'll see when I get started on that one. So I just want to come up with a little pattern here. Let me just play for a moment. Let's see. Okay, that's what I think I'm going to do. So I am going to thread this on to my leather. Oh, I picked up one that does not readily fit. Okay, there we go. And let's see, I'm going to repeat that same thing. The filigree little spacer tube, and then the solid one. And I'm going to feed that right down. And I have to decide if I'm going to let this just float on the leather or if I'm going to create some knots in between. So I'm going to go ahead and thread these on and have a look at it and then make that decision. That's really pretty. Wow, I already love it. But I was thinking that I might have some of the leather, a knot in between, you know, because knots can act as a spacer in stringing. So this is 3mm leather. Of course, I've picked up one of these that the hole is not totally clear. Try another one. I don't want to damage my leather, so yeah, I want my beads to slide on. And let's see. Ceramic bead. Another filigree and the ceramic bead. That is so pretty. I wish you guys were sitting here with me because I would love to know what you think. If I should separate these and do some knots. So that is pretty when you see the magenta in between the gold. Okay, decision made. So the only thing about that is going to make it so that things stay where they are. So I do have to find the end of my leather. I do have to, I'll pull out of the camera for just 1 second so I can draw everything to the middle. And what I meant to say is I need to find the middle of my leather. Okay, that is so pretty. I love it. So that is my middle. And so I think what I will need to do is put, I'm going to have to unstring, let's see, let me think this through. Yeah, I will have to unstring this side now that I know that that's my middle. Pull these off so that I can get a knot in there. And then I will make this other side match. So I'm just going to do an overhand knot right here. That looks great. And then I'm just going to repeat the same thing. Just thread on my next little bead and put a knot right behind that one. Just an overhand knot and just pulling it really, really tight. I mean, actually, if you wanted the bead to float, but I kind of like the way the 3mm leather makes a really nice chunky knot on either side. Give that one a pull and make it a little bit tighter. And let's see what came next. Then this bead, and then another knot. So with this little stringing method, you can kind of see that the knots create, you know, they act as a spacer bead. And this pendant is so weighty that it's actually a great design to knot with, because as it hangs, it will kind of straighten the leather out and, you know, pull it down so that everything hangs straight. But that is so pretty. Okay, another knot. Just work it down and give it a good pull. And my last little spacer bead. Give it a good pull. Like I say, this is weighty, so when this necklace is finished, and I'll hang it, let it hang a little bit, and the leather will begin to straighten and, you know, it'll soften in that, kind of take that form. And just FYI, I went into my stash for my leather because I, you know, have a little stash of it. I keep it organized in its own separate little bin. But Stella on Didi's Beads, she has a nice little selection of leather and in a lot of colors, and some of the waxed cord that I like to knot with. So if you need supplies, check out her website for that. Okay, now I just have to decide. I think I do want a knot here as well. So let me scoot everything so that I can get a knot in here. I'm going to put a knot on this side as well. And then I just have to make the other side match. Whoops, that's not going to work. Just pull everything through before I tighten it. Okay, and I'm just going to give this a pull just to try to help it to get straight. It looks pretty good. And then I'll let my pendant fall down to this side, and I'll start my knotting up the other side and make it match. Just get that knot right beside the bail. And I kind of like doing this too, because that way the bail won't slide up and down on the leather and kind of wear out the color on the leather over time. Just give that a pull. Oh, that is so pretty. And I'm just going to bring down my next bead and do my knotting all the way up this side just to match exactly the other side. Okay, this necklace is mostly done. I am going to glue my other cap onto the other end, and I'll set it aside and let it dry while we move on to the next necklace. So for these glue-in caps, you could use E6000, that works really well, but I've always had good success with the Loctite Ultra Control Gel super glue, and I just will get like a good bead flowing. This one is almost empty, but I have a little bit more in here, and I will just literally fill up this end cap. Just fill it with glue. This pendant is a little bit heavy, so I do want to make sure that there's plenty of glue, and then just gently place my end right inside. And I'll just set that aside to dry, and when it's all dry, we'll come back and add the ring and the lobster claw clasp, but I'm just going to set these off to the side and let them dry in there. And this piece is most of the way done. Just have to be a little bit patient to put the clasp on, and we can move on to the next necklace. So my next necklace is going to be the medium length of my layering set, and I have, how did this little guy get over here? I'm missing a bead. I have kind of taken a little scrap of the 1mm leather that I plan to use, and I took apart the designer strand in the June box, and I mixed in some of the frosted, well textured glass beads, and the spacers on that were wavy, and this was all of them. There were 2, 4, 6 spacers and 4 little gold balls, and I just created a pattern, and that's going to be the focal. But I do want my elements to kind of appear in all 3 necklaces, because as I said, they're layering, so you could wear them all together at different lengths or separate them and wear one at a time. But I do want to put one of these green beads, and I'm using a couple of these faceted beads that I just loved so much from the box. So that was just my little sample, but I did the same thing on this necklace as I did the other one, where I went ahead and glued one of my leather ends right on. So I'm just going to transfer this little pattern to the other side of this necklace. Let me make a nice fresh cut on this. It's gotten a little bit smashed, so it doesn't want to go through the beads. So just give myself a nice little angled cut. Okay, so now I just want to find the middle, and I'm going to secure this right in the middle of my length with a knot on either end of the gold bead. So let me just pull out of the camera. I am going to just bringing all of those beads down to the middle of my length. Just holding my finger there because that was my middle right there. Just work that down to that spot. Right there. And it might be a little bit easier if you're going to do a leather design like this with knots, not to put your cord in, because then you can adjust your length when you need things centered by just snipping a little bit off the ends. But I did this ahead of time so it would be dry, so that we could you know, jump right into the to the design together and not have to wait. So that's why I did them in advance. But if you're just doing this, you know, not making a video, you can not put your cord ends on until the very end, and it will be a little bit easier. You don't have to do what I'm doing to find the center and all of that. Okay, so that is the focal on this necklace. I love the way those gold beads go up against the little wavy spacers and just separate. I mean, that is just, it just takes on this beautiful shape. I love it. Okay, now I'm going to get my other beads on the pattern. I'm going to come right here. And you know what? I do have to cut this cord end off because there was really no way to do this and center it with this end on. I was trying to make it so that I wouldn't have to wait for it to dry and take a pause, but it looks like that's not, I'm going to have to cut it away. Sometimes trying to do your designs for videotaping purposes, I was trying to make it a little bit easier to videotape and ended up wasting a cord end. It's okay. I was trying to think it through, but I'm just going to go ahead now and match up both ends. Just make a fresh cut. I mean, it happens. It happens even when you're just making things when you're not filming. But I was trying to be you know, kind of proactive with my video so that everything would be dry. So let me just thread on one of these on each side. Just going to bring them down and see what I think. My idea was to have these and the green beads. Let me just thread them on and look at it and see how I feel about it. Oh, they are pretty. I like the color combination of the turquoise and the green and then this kind of sandy gold color. Let's see. And those give it a nice weight too. Okay, they're going to go on. That is the design process, I guess. And so I want to have space between. I want to see some of this turquoise leather. So I'm going to come, let's see, easier to tie a knot without it. I'm going to come right here and do another knot and do one on the other side as well. Give it a nice pull. The 1mm leather is so much easier to get your knots in than the 3mm. And then just match it. If you wanted to do this asymmetrical, you could, but because it's going to be a layering set, I'm going to match my two sides. Because, you know, a layering set will be a little bit busier just by nature, because if you decide to wear all three together. Okay, now these guys can go back on, and I'll do the same thing that I did on the 3mm leather, is hold them in place with a knot, and that acts as the spacer as well. I love this too because it kind of looks like these beads are floating on the leather, and I love that it features, because these are beautiful faceted gemstone beads, and I love them, so it kind of does feature them. I'm so sorry about my bracelet. I love this bracelet. I made this little bracelet for a recent video, and it has a like it's fully adjustable, and you know, it's for any size. And I love the drama of the chain and the dangles. And I was wearing it today, but it keeps hitting my table. I'm sorry about the noise. But I do love the bracelet, but it might not be the best for, you know, a lot of things are different when you're doing video of your work as opposed to just sitting down and working. Okay, that is looking great. And then I'm going to do another knot before the green beads and just repeat the same thing. I'm just going to make a little space. Last overhand knot, and I am going to do the same thing, just kind of grab a hold of my leather and just give it a little pull, not too hard. You actually can like break 1 millimeter leather if you pull too hard, but I just want it to straighten out. And of course it will, leather will straighten. Gravity will be our friend after it is done and hanging for a little bit. My leather has been in a package for a long time in a little coil, so that's the shape that it's taken, but it will warm up and straighten out a little bit. So I'm going to do the same thing for this small little end cap, is just get my gel super glue going and just put it inside. Do the same thing on the other side, and then set this aside. I will not attach my jump rings and my clasps until this has had a little bit of time to set up. It can get, if you rush and you don't wait for it to dry, you can end up with glue everywhere and or this not being secure. Now this one is going to use the Tourmaline. It is going to use the leaves, that this Tourmaline leaf mix that was in the box, and maybe some other things that I had cut open. And I want this to be like maybe, I don't know, 16 to 18 inches. So I have just been really generous with my stringing material, and it is going to be doubled. So let me find the middle. And I'm not sure, but I think I'm just going to do a little magnetic clasp on this one. You can tie right onto your magnetic clasp, or you can use a jump ring. And I think I'm going to use a jump ring just because sometimes I change my mind about a clasp. And so I think I am going to use a jump ring for each end. This is just tie right onto an overhand knot. And I always put a little dot of beater's glue, like GS Hypo Cement, on my knots. I don't want to cover it for security because I didn't attach my half of my clasp. Leave it so that I can see it. Okay, and then I'm just going to loop it back through one more time. Just going to loop it back through the jump ring one more time and do one more overhand knot. Just because on a magnetic clasp you do kind of pull, you know, it's the nature of the clasp, so I just want to make sure this is really secure. And I'll even use my pliers to make sure that knot is really, really secure. And open the jump ring, and I'll add my little, I'll add my magnetic clasp to one end. And now I can cover, I'll pull my knot over, just slide it around over the opening of the jump ring. There we go. And when I'm all done, I will put a little bit of glue in this. In fact, I might leave that loop I might leave that. I may hang something from that. I love to put a little charm or something on the back of my necklaces, so I'm going to leave that until the end, and I'll decide how I want to finish. So there's my extra little jump ring, and now I can just start my stringing pattern. So with waxed Brazilian wax cord, if you want to take some super glue and a little plastic bag and make this hard, you can. You can also use nail polish and let it dry, but I just don't do it. I mean, you can, but I check to make sure the beads I want to use will go through, and I just pinch and twist, and that gives me like a little natural needle. So I am going to start by, what do I want to put? Let me get some of my beads in here. I do think I'm going to want some of these. I love this little sage green electroplated rondelle. This is so beautiful. I'm going to just take a little start here, stringing with a knot. I'm going to let some of my cord show on this design. Because this is kind of summer wear, I'm not going to pack this with beads. So I'm going to make like a little knot. I'm going to leave some of the cord showing on this pattern. Sometimes the only thing you see of the cord is the knot in between the beads, but sometimes I expose some of the cord, and in this case, I think that's what I'm going to do. I also think that on some of these beads like these, I will be only stringing the bead on one cord, and I'll bring it down to where I want it to be and let my cord kind of hug the outside, and then I'll be able to bring it together for the tourmaline and I think even my leaves that I want to use. So it just looks like that. You just have one cord in the bead, one cord out of the bead, and I'll do another overhand knot. And I love to use my knotting tweezers for this. So they are just a really long, skinny, precision tip tweezer. And once you have made your overhand knot, you reach inside the loop and grab your cord, both of them, the one that's in the bead and out, right wherever you want the knot. If you want the bead to be floating, you can, let it float like that. I want it to be tight, so I'm going to grab the cord, both cords, and just pull. And so that makes that knot land exactly where the tip of the tweezer was, and then I use my tweezer just to tighten it and give it a little tug. So that's my first bead on my design. And now I think I will bring these both together and do another little overhand knot. And here's where, if you're going to have space in between, your tweezer is wonderful for that, because I don't measure, I just eyeball it as I go down the length of my design, but I can see where that tweezer is. That's where my knot is going to be. So I'm doing what, half an inch or so, and so I just love my knotting tweezers. You can do it with just your fingers. You can even use the tip of like a really fine tip. You could probably even use like a Zuron round nose plier or something, but I love my little knotting tweezer. And then I'm going to start with a pattern, and this time I'm going to bring these two together and thread them both through one of the tourmaline beads, and just bring it down, and another overhand knot, and reach inside the loop and pull, and it's there. So now I'm just going to think about if I want to just do a random pattern, which is what I think I'm going to do, because this is not going to have a pendant on it. It's just going to be a random pattern, but it is going to have some texture and interest because I'm going to cluster the leaves when I get down near the front. So I am just going to continue kind of picking up beads. I'm going to mix in the colors of the tourmaline. Yay, my knotting and stringing is done, and as always happens to me when I'm doing a project like that, because I'm sitting here looking at all the elements that are going into my design, I always start thinking, what else can I do? What would I want to do? What do I want to change? And so on this piece, I knotted and got to my desired length, and I am ready to tie this end onto my magnetic clasp. But it just looked like it needed something to me, so I went back and took the little leaves. There were 4 leaves, 2 of each kind, on the designer bead strand in the box, and I had separated them out, but I decided to go ahead and wire wrap them and slip a little jump ring, a really small jump ring, around the outside waxed cord from those little beads, and just give a little dangle and movement. So I have one more to do. I already put my jump ring in the spot where I would like it to be, and I am using the same fine gauge ball head pin that I used for the earrings. And this is, there were 2 of these leaves and 2 of these kind of maple leaves. And let me wire wrap this one and I'll show you, but it just adds so much to the design. So let me see, I need pliers for that. And I just did a wire wrapped loop, just like I did on the drops for the earrings, and I stayed with my Xuron round nose pliers just because I want really small loops on these wire wrapped loops. So I'm just going to get that in there. I did a messy wrap on these, just really organic, because it's such a casual design, fun, casual, playful, flirty, and I didn't want anything too serious, so I tried really hard not to fuss over my wraps, but just get them in there and let them land where they land, kind of that, you know, messy boho look. But I still want to make sure there's nothing sharp. It's a really fine gauge wire, and I want to make sure that everything is tucked in nicely before I attach. And I just wanted it to move, so I didn't even, like on these, I wrapped my wire down to make sure that was facing forward, but I really want these to dangle. So I just left them really loose and free, and I'm just going to attach it right to that little jump ring. But and again, I will take this and put this on Gabriella Eva, because on my mat with 4 projects, it's a little bit hard to see and it's not a great camera angle. But when I held it up against myself, I just love having these leaves are strung right on to the cord, and they have one of those little sage green rondelles in between, and the knots are kind of holding them in place, and they can spin around too, but then these dangle in a different way. And I alternated, there were only 2 of each, so I alternated, you know, just kind of random. My pattern is sort of random too, and I really liked seeing the turquoise Brazilian cord in between the beads, and it's not heavy, it's lightweight. So let's go ahead and finish this off. This is just a simple matter of, oh, I need my jump ring. Just going to do the same thing on this side right that here. I did on the other side, and at this point I can separate my magnet. Okay, so before I trim that away, I will do the gluing. And then I don't know if I'm going to add something or cut this away. I haven't decided yet, but this beautiful little piece is done. It looks so great with my earrings, and it really does have all the colors of the tourmaline. And now, while I was stringing and knotting, these cord ends are totally dry. So I already put my larger ring on one side, and I'm going to use this really tiny little jump ring to attach the lobster claw clasp. And that large jump ring is really great, although this piece I think is really long enough to just go over my head, but I like the smaller jump ring to attach to the lobster claw clasp, and then for it to clasp into that large thicker ring, because it's just really, if you have to undo it, it's just really convenient, easy. And so that piece is done. this can get, with that larger ring, even by yourself, you can easily put that on. And I already did this one, and these pieces are done, and I just love it. I could see this being worn, you know, as layering. I actually really like the two leather pieces together. And again, I just don't have the space to show you on my mat how pretty they are, but this one can nestle right inside this one like that, and it just looks great. And my leather, you know, is it's not hanging totally straight, but that's because it just came out of the package and I just did the knots a couple of hours ago. But I will hang these on a little jewelry hook, and gravity will help me, and in a few days they'll be nice and straight. And I'm going to glue this with a little bit, for those of you who are new to knotting glue, this is the GS Hypo Cement. I like that one, and I also like this Beadalon bead stringing glue. These have a really nice little precision tip. I'll just show you. I'll use this one today. They're equally the same. I get questions about glue, and really the difference is that super glue and you know, things like that, they dry really hard, but for knots in leather or waxed cord, a glue that dries and is still a little rubbery, still a little malleable, is really the best glue for that. So I keep a few different glues on my work table, and the only thing about these with their precision tip, they're great. You can actually place the glue right inside the knot and it dries clear. You can use that tip to kind of direct the glue. This one's really tight, but I still like to put a little drop of glue. The only bad thing is that because how tiny this tip is, the glue does keep flowing. So once you've squeezed a little bit out, you have to be pretty quick about getting the needle back in and get it covered, because it keeps coming out. It's a little challenging sometimes, but not so bad. That just makes me feel good about my work. And then, like I say, the glue will keep coming out, so you just have to get that needle back in there pretty quickly. And so I can put a link to the two glues that I like if you are new to knotting glue, and I usually let those dry before I cut away my tails. So I will let them dry for a few minutes before I take my final video and picture, and I'll take these over to Gabriella Eva and get you some better pictures. And I am once again going to remind you to subscribe to my channel if you have not. I have some special things coming this month to my channel, and I'm gonna have to remember not to wear this bracelet again when I'm filming. It's really noisy. But I do have some special things coming to my channel this month. And so if you tap the bell notification after you subscribe, you won't miss those videos when they are posted. And I really appreciate you being here on my channel today and choosing my video with everything that there is to watch. And I do encourage you to use the links in the description box and check out Didi's Beads. It's a beautiful website, and you know, let me know what you think. I always like to hear that in the comments. Thanks a lot, everybody. I hope everybody's starting off with a great summer and you're safe and well and having fun on your beading mats. Ciao, jewelry making friends.